making an applesauce cake. First thing I'm going to do is spray my pan. Oh, crud. I forgot this is a loaf pan. Oh well, we're making it into a cake. Yeah, let's see how many cups of flour. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna make it into a cake like this, even though it's all in a loaf pan. Why? Because I'm Tara and it's my cookbook and I will do what I want. Okay, getting my shortening, a half a cup. Now, I'm just gonna fill, I've got a 1 cup measure here. So I'm just gonna fill it halfway. And down to the very last of my shortening. Getting it all scraped out. Got a comment that someone was very disturbed that I didn't use a scraper on one of my last videos because I just used a spoon. Oh my, the travesty, the travesty. Even though I got the majority of the stuff out of the bowl. It just always amazes me what people... All right, and then 1.5 cups of sugar. 1.5. And 2 eggs. Salt and cinnamon and cloves. The recipe is in the description below. This is from our Dining on a Dime cookbook, volume 1 right there on page 277. This was my grandma's recipe. You can see by the recipe card. You can see I'm making a lot by the condition of my book. The condition of my cookbook, I should say. All right, I got my 2 tablespoons of water and then my 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Dissolve it in there. And my 2.5 cups of flour. All right, now I'm gonna grab my applesauce. This is my homemade applesauce that I had in the freezer, trying to get it used up. There's 1. And 1/2 cups. Now, like I said, the recipe calls for a loaf pan, but I'm making this into a cake shape. And I will bake it for probably, I don't know, probably 30 minutes or so, instead of an hour like the recipe says. Okay, put it in the oven. How to make buttercream icing. Put your butter or your margarine or your shortening in with just a little bit of vanilla. I add just a touch of butter flavoring. I think it just makes it taste better. And I just a tiny bit of salt. And my powdered sugar. Oops. And just a bit of milk. If you're dairy-free, feel free to use dairy-free milk. Yeah, I don't know if my margarine is. Okay, very good. Yeah, I'm gonna add the rest of my okay. Making a huge mess because the powdered sugar got opened incorrectly. I don't know if that was me or one of the kids, but we love us all anyway. All right, and now I'm going to take a little taste to make sure. That is really good. Oh my goodness, that is delicious. Okay, yum. Now we're gonna ice our cake. This recipe is in our Dining on a Dime Cookbook Volume 1. I'm gonna test and see if my cake is done. Oh, it's not. So can you see it jiggling in the center there? I know it's not done there. All right, here's my apple cake, and we're gonna let it cool, and then we're gonna frost it. Got my cake and my frosting. Yummarumo. And then, in order not to tear your cake, pile your frosting in the center and just work its way out. And then you won't tear your cake. All right. Oh, doesn't that look delicious? All right, there is our apple cake. Today we are making Great Grandma's Devil's Food Cake on page 281. This is a Great Depression recipe that my great grandmother made. First, we're going to take and put our shortening and our cocoa in our bowl. Now, let me show you how to measure shortening. You fill your measuring cup with water. You can see I have 1.5 cups of water in my measuring cup. Then I'm going to scoop my shortening. I added that's a half a cup of shortening. 1.5 plus a half a cup is 2 cups. So you can see my water line is at 2 cups. And then I'm just gonna add the 2 tablespoons. So there you can see it's just above 2 cups. And you just pour the water out of your measuring cup. Don't let your shortening fall out. And we're putting our shortening in our bowl. And we're going to measure 1/3 of a cup of cocoa. Which is 5 tablespoons. So if you don't want to use the measuring cup, 1/3 of a cup is 5 tablespoons. Add our cocoa. Then we're going to have 1 cup of boiling water. Now you'll notice that this recipe is slightly different than my great grandma's recipe card on the same page. That's because Grandma used to get the baking cocoa in bars instead of shortening and cocoa. But the bars of baking chocolate now are kind of expensive. You can just use melted shortening and baking cocoa and it's the same exact thing. Also for this recipe, if you want to melt your shortening in the microwave, that's totally fine. Grandma didn't have a microwave, so that's why I'm making it her way. Now we're gonna add our sugar. Now I just keep my scoops in my flour and my sugar. Usually I have a 1/2 cup. I don't know where my 1/2 cup went, so I've got a 1/4 cup right now. And then I just measure directly and I don't have to dirty extra utensils. So that's really nice. Then salt. You want baking soda, not powder. The acidity in the sour milk reacts with the baking soda, so you don't need baking powder for this recipe. Then our 2 eggs. Then I have some soured milk. If you have soured milk but you don't have baking to do yet, you can freeze it in ice cube trays, let it sour sufficiently, a week or 2 is fine. And then I freeze it in ice cube trays and pull out my soured milk as I need it. Add that. Now, you can use the mixer if you want. Grandma didn't have mixer, so I'm showing you how I do it by hand. I get everything mixed up first before I add the flour, just to make sure everything is incorporated really well. Now I'm gonna add my 2 cups of flour. There's 1 and 2, and I'm putting just a bit more because my 1 was just shy of 1 cup. All right, now we just get this really mixed well. Now, if we are doing it like Grandma, she would have saved her margarine or her butter wrapper. I would have greased her pans with her butter or margarine wrapper. Now, I know that this is 2022, so if you want to just use cooking spray, you can. Then we're going to divide the batter between the 2 cake pans. Smooth it out. And we are going to bake at 350 degrees. The recipe is in the description below. Great Grandma's Devil's Food Cake. It's still delicious 100 years later.